In this video I want to take a look at the new bend and twist command. We'll start off by taking an overall look and then come back and look at some of the options on the dynabar in detail. So here we have the dog modelled in a very neutral pose. I will switch off perspective, come to a side view, and then let's zoom in around the neck. So I go to the new bend and twist in the deform clay palette. And first off, you see we have this slice tool on the end of my stylus on the Phantom, and wherever I click, this is where my bend zone, my bend widget is going to be placed. Now the angle of the widget is completely dependent on the angle of the plane that I freely put in there. At this stage what we can do is manipulate the widget around. So if I come to a front view, you can see it's slightly off axis, so just by picking up the end points and the middle I can square up my bend widget, my bend region, and then also by touching the end faces, what I can do is stretch that zone bigger or smaller. It's also a good idea to make sure that the widget really encompasses all the area you wish to bend and twist. If the widget is too small, for example, or here you see it's too large but the rest of the place it's interior to model, that can cause you problems. So really make sure it's nice and big. And then when you have the bend zone looking how you would like it, we can go to the actual bend and twist icon. It takes a few seconds to initialize the model, and then here you can see how I can grab the end here and start bending the head of the dog around, or I can grab this other handle and twist the head of the dog as well. And then when you're happy with how you've posed the dog, we can come back and hit the apply button to bake that change into the clay. Now depending on the resolution of the model you're using, sometimes this baking can take a few seconds, sometimes it can take a little bit longer. And I just go to my sculpt command as neutral to get out of bend and twist, and there you see the result of the posed dog. So let's undo that and then we can come back and start to look at some of the options in detail. The first option I want to take a look at is ways in which we control the placement of that widget. So if I make myself a plane and put that plane in the middle of the model, this time when I go into bend and twist and place my widget, what I can do is switch on the ability to touch planes down here in the dynabar, and then I can pick up the end handles, move them right onto that plane as well as the middle of the widget as well. And then when we come and look from the front, you can see how that widget is right on the plane. So the ability to reference planes is very useful when positioning the widget. Now let's undo that and come out. I'm going to hide this plane away and make a new plane. Now this plane, I'm actually going to position this plane where I want the widget to come in. Something like that. And now when I go back into the bend and twist command, this time I have the option of selecting a plane. So I pick that plane, and you can see the big green arrow is pointing in the wrong direction, so I want to flip that. And the size of the widget is actually based on the size of that plane, so right now you can see how it's way too big, so I'm just going to make it a lot smaller. but there again you can see how we have other ways of referencing planes to make positioning that widget easier from the beginning. So let's hide that plane away. Now everything we've done so far is positioning the widget with the default boundary option. So if we come in here and I'll position the plane again, you can see how positioning the plane, that's where the boundary of the widget comes. But what I can do is actually place it with a center option instead. So this time down on the Dynabar I pick the center option, and now you can see how when I position that plane it comes to be the center of the widget. As we move away along the Dynabar, you can see how we can flip the arrow, which is showing you which side of the widget is actually going to move. Other things we can do is control, for example, the twist by typing in the twist angle. So let's go to a 15-degree twist, and just as I can dynamically move the handle, I could also type in the number here as well, so I could go to a 15-degree twist. Now the tension of the twist, this is how smooth the in and out of that deformed area happens. So you can see how right on the border of the widget we have these bars which help us visualize how the twist is going to happen. I could take that all the way to the left, and then you see how the twist is much sharper. There is no transition, smooth transition zone. Or if I take it all the way to the right, you can see how we have a much smoother transition in and out of that bend area. Now let's take a look at the style option. Up to now we've been looking at it with the default standard, but when we go to extended twist, you see that the widget is now broken into two zones. The first zone is where the bend happens. You see that second zone has got no bending, but the twist happens across both zones. Or if we take the style down to isolated twist, you can see the twist is now isolated to just that second zone and not the first zone as well. Let's put it back onto standard. Now if we control the view lock, if we switch on the view lock, then we're actually locked directly to the plane of the view when we're doing the bending. Or if we were to have a plane in place, we could switch on touch planes, and then we could touch the plane with the end handle, and that's another way of controlling exactly where the bend is going. We also have the option of precise movement, and then when you're finished and you're happy with how the bend and twist is looking, we can just hit the apply button and that will bake the change into the model. And there again you see the result of the bend and twist operation. If we come in again, and this time I'm going to put the slice down the body of the dog, and we want to come back and move the back end of the dog, and just make the zone slightly larger. This time when I go to the bend and twist, we're going to look from the top, switch on view lock, and you can see how I can bend the back end of the dog around, but I also have an option of constant arc length, because if I bend it too much, you can see how we're basically compressing the inner part of the widget, whereas if I put on constant arc length, that stops that decompression happening. Now another thing to be aware of here is that if the model gets very heavy, to keep some degree of interactivity, you'll often see that you won't get a dynamic real-time change. The model will only update when you let go of the widget, and this is intended to keep a degree of real-time interactivity even if the full graphics aren't keeping up with your actual modeling. And that finishes a quick introduction into the new bend and twist tool.